What's up? Welcome into another edition of the NBR Rams Live, presented by our friends at Branded Bills. Head to brandedbills.com. Use that code BBDNVR for 15% off of your first order. Happy Monday, y'all. I'm Justin Michael. You might know me as J Mike. We've got a lot to dive into today. We're going to talk hoops. We're going to talk about spring football, which kicked off yesterday morning. It was a long practice. The Rams, they went at it for it being day one, definitely more intense than what we're used to seeing at this portion of the spring. I'll kind of talk about what stood out, although you kind of have to take everything with a massive grain of salt at this stage of the process. I don't want to make it seem like we know everything about this team after one day of not even getting to see the guys in full pads. There's so much to be determined between now and September, but we will get into just kind of who caught my eye. We'll talk about, the tone that Mora set with his comments, as well as just his general demeanor throughout the practice. Certainly a perfectionist and certainly a very hands-on football coach. And he's not afraid to let people know if he's not satisfied with what's being delivered, equipment, staff, players, all of the above. But it was great to be back out there, and I appreciate that they've been open with the media and are giving us an opportunity to be around the program. That's not the case with a lot of college football teams today. And it obviously allows us to give far more accurate commentary, be less speculative, all of that stuff, which ironically tends to piss the coaches off less, which is this classic dilemma that I always find, ironic with some of the teams that are a little bit more restrictive. The coaches will get upset that people are speculative and not, in their estimation, giving honest commentary, but then they don't allow those people to watch practice and get an opportunity to actually learn about the team. Like, it kind of works both ways. So I appreciate the open approach from CSU, especially with Wyoming closing all of their spring practices. Certainly seems like Mora is not overthinking it. And I do think that's a thing with rivalries, especially. I think we've witnessed it in the past with Norvell. I think Bobo had some of that with him, where you get too cute with some of that stuff. Now you're trying to be, real secretive, and you play like the video of the opposing team all week on the scoreboard. It just, to me, makes guys more tense. And I feel like the more you try and change how you operate as a program and emphasize, one game, the more that the guys tend to come out tense. And I just don't know if it ends up being motivating. I feel like it ends up being more counterproductive. And I just feel like if it's March and April and you're already in your head about, oh, we don't want Wyoming to see our spring practices, like, you've kind of already lost the battle, at least on the mental side of things. So I like the general vibe right now with CSU football. I like, although it's early, we don't know a ton. I like that it was a little bit more intense than what we're used to seeing. I like that they don't feel like they have to get too cute here or scared of potential coverage. It's all encouraging. We'll get into all of that. Just kind of starting with our general Monday morning stuff, best and the worst of the weekend. Best, Avalanche trade for Nazem Kadri. Awesome to see him come back. Then they follow it up with shootout victories over the Wild and Dallas, two of the team's biggest rivals. Also, the Avs tend to be terrible in shootouts, so that was kind of a moment of redemption, it felt like. Great to see McKinnon score the game winner, too, yesterday after taking a dumb penalty late in OT. Worst of the weekend, CSU men's basketball. The winning streak obviously came to an end. They fell 78-67 to Boise State. We'll get into the takeaways. It was pretty self-explanatory, to be honest. This was a pretty easy game to sum up. We'll talk about what went wrong, what was still encouraging despite a somewhat underwhelming showing, just really didn't bring the fight or the intensity that we had become accustomed to seeing of late, and that was definitely disappointing. Not shocking either necessarily, especially coming off of the high of going out on the road, beating New Mexico in the pit as 8.5 point underdogs. It's just not that surprising to me. Like, I feel like we see that a lot, especially in college sports, the classic letdown game coming off of, the euphoria of winning a matchup that frankly nobody really gave you a chance to win. Boise's also really good. I mean, that's the thing that I think gets lost in some of the commentary with this stuff is they're not a team who has had the season that they would have hoped for. A lot like you could say about CSU if you're factoring in the entirety of the schedule. There are some games that they would like to have back. I mean, they lost to a D2 team to begin the year, but they're kind of looking like the group that I thought they could be at the beginning of the season. And I mean, they've got a lot of depth. Buchanan, Andrew Meadows, those are good players. And Fielder, quite frankly, probably had the most impressive performance from an opposing player that I've seen in person, at least this year. Gibbs Lawhorn, I wasn't at that game in Vegas, but he obviously balled out in that matchup. But it was a bummer. It's also not the end of the world. You get to avoid the 8-9 matchup. And honestly, I kind of like how the 7 plays out better than the 6. I'll talk about that a little bit later on as well. Love this time of year. We'll get out to Vegas on Wednesday morning. It's going to be kind of chaotic because I'm trying to follow spring football right now. I'm trying to obviously cover the Avalanche, and I'm trying to keep up with both the men's and women's programs. Speaking of which, the women's team, what a win last night. What a way to kick off their portion of the Mountain West tournament. I will say, to me, and I think it's for logistical reasons, just scheduling and operations and all of that. But I really hate that they have separated the men's and women's tournaments over the years. When I first got on the beat 10 years ago, I posted about that, realized after the conclusion of Saturday's game against Boise State that this was my 10th season full time covering men's basketball, 12th overall, I believe, if I factor in some of the early stuff at the Collegian when I was just kind of writing columns, and I actually started covering the women's team back when they were a unit. They won 4 straight regular season titles, only made the NCAA tournament once. But that's what's kind of exciting about what's on the table for CSU right now is there's a really viable path to the NCAA tournament for this team. They got to get through UNLV tonight, which is going to be really tough. But with San Diego State falling as the top seed, a team that swept CSU, was 2 really tight games. Like I think you would have been optimistic about the Rams' chances of hanging in that game. But for the top seed to go down, it obviously opens up a much easier path for you. It looked a little bit sweaty at times. They went down 8. It was a struggle of a second quarter, kind of back and forth in the third, but you weren't really able to cut into the deficit at all. And then in that fourth quarter, CSU just really took control of the game. They played great defense in that second half in general, held GCU to 29% from the floor over those final 2 quarters. CSU, after kind of struggling to score in the second, early in the third, they kind of went on a tear in that fourth, outscored GCU by 10 in that fourth quarter on 60% from the floor. Really impressive stuff. Chloe Froby and Lexus Bargesser combined for 18 points. They were a perfect 5 of 5 from the floor in that fourth quarter. And then obviously Madeline Bragg posts up, gets the ball, rolls it off the glass. Nice touch as the buzzer goes off, and CSU escapes with the 2-point win over GCU. They win 61-59. They will advance to play UNLV, who is a tough matchup. They've kind of been the face of Mountain West basketball on the women's side over the last half decade. They had won 10 straight against CSU before the Rams finally snapped that in their most recent matchup in Fort Collins. Both teams have a double-digit victory over the other this season, so we'll see how this rubber match goes. But if you can get through UNLV, now all of a sudden that path to the tournament is a lot easier than you would have expected. Now, you can't overlook Air Force. They beat Wyoming in the first matchup. They convincingly took down San Diego State, although the the lead almost slipped away from them. They were winning by like 10 for a decent portion of the game, and then San Diego State started jacking up threes, played their way back into it. But to the credit of the Falcons, they hung on. Brent Brenneman, who covers the team for the Denver Gazette, he had a hilarious post. There was I think like a 9-year-old San Diego State fan that was sitting close to where he was, and she started crying when Air Force won the game, and he just made a post about when was the last time that Air Force basketball made an opposing fan cry from the top rope. Brent coming with the F them kids mentality. I love it. I love the chaos of the tournament. I know that especially in a one bid league, there are some people who feel like it's not fair to teams who, you know, win the regular season crown and then their fate comes down to 3 or 4 days potentially. Some leagues do it differently. Some leagues it's only like you'll have to win 1 or 2 games. But in a format where it's just a true tournament like CSU in the Mountain West, I get why in a one bid league it can be a little bit unfair to a team like San Diego State, who was great in the regular season, and now they lose a fluky game to Air Force, and they have to kiss their NCAA tournament hopes goodbye. I think there's some validity to that. I also think that's just part of the ordeal. It is a bit of a sacrifice. I get it, but also it's what makes this whole thing so intriguing, right? Like the chaos of the conference tournament, single elimination format. Anybody has the opportunity of making magic. It's fun, and it's what creates some really unique storylines. And I get why there are some flaws to the process, but it's been fun to see it play out. And last night's game was probably a little bit more of a grinded out type matchup than you would have expected for CSU, who beat GCU by double digits in both regular season matchups. But it's not like that team is untalented. A lot like the men's side, they invest pretty heavily in women's basketball. They don't have football to fund, obviously. They've got a lot of private money that backs the program. I think both on the men's and women's side, GCU has a good opportunity to be kind of the premier programs of the future Mountain West. I'm sure New Mexico and potentially UNLV will be in that conversation as well. But sets up a really big opportunity now for Ryan Williams and company. They haven't been a super clutch program historically in this format. It's tough, don't get me wrong. The men's side's only won it once in the last 20 years as well. I get that. But this is kind of an opportunity, it feels like, to potentially make up for some missed opportunities during the last couple of years where you had a lot of talent. I mean, McKenna Hofschild, last year you have both Ron Six, and the fact that you got 0 NCAA tournaments out of it, it felt pretty underwhelming. It felt frankly disappointing. And while I don't talk about this kind of stuff very often because I don't feel like it's super fair of me to come in hypercritical as someone who's not on the beat full time, I wish I could provide more women's basketball coverage. It's basically just impossible. There's so much overlap with the men's team. I'm covering, football and hockey and everything else. It's just I'm one dude. There's only so many hours in the day. I can only produce so much content. But it has kind of felt like CSU has left a little to be desired here over the last decade. And there have been some good teams. It's certainly not like the program's been a disaster or anything like that. It just kind of felt like in the big moment when the lights got bright, the Rams kind of crumbled, and they lost some games in the tournament to Wyoming over the years, and UNLV was always this hurdle that they couldn't get over. And now that you don't have to worry about San Diego State, if you can just get through UNLV, you've got an awesome opportunity to make the NCAA tournament for the first time in over a decade, which is frankly long overdue. I don't think we can accept one tournament for every decade moving forward. I really don't think that should be the standard in the Pac-12. But this is an opportunity to really create some magic and, generate some momentum going into that new era next year in the Pac-12, which obviously is going to be a lot of fun on the hoop side. I'm really looking forward to it. And I'm looking forward to tonight's game. I wish it was a little bit earlier. All these 8:30 games are killing me between CSU hoops and the Avalanche and the Nuggets and everything else. It feels like everybody's playing at 8:30, 9 p.m. The semis will be like 9 p.m. if the men's team makes it this week. Just a heads up on that. But nice that they didn't draw the 12 p.m. game. Nice that they aren't the late night game on day one, 6 p.m. That's a pretty solid time. I'm pretty traditional to what you're used to from like a body clock perspective and all of that. We will talk about the men's basketball team. We're about to talk football though. Let's take a quick break real quick, shout out a couple of our partners, and then we will keep this rolling. Trucks have always been a part of Toyota's DNA. For generations, Toyota's built durable legends destined for greatness and perfect for Colorado. Whether you're conquering off-road trails or hauling the weight of the world, there's a Toyota truck that's just right for you. Check out the Tacoma. Check out the Land Cruiser. You really cannot go wrong. Toyota offers 17 models available all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive, like the Epic 4Runner. They also offer more low and zero-emission vehicles combined than any other automaker to give customers numerous choices to reduce their carbon footprint. 16 hybrid vehicles to choose from, which is awesome. Check out the Tundra iForce Max hybrid truck. Not to be outdone, though, Toyota SUVs take command on the road and on the trail so you can explore the road less traveled without sacrificing smooth city rides in SUVs like the RAV4 and Grand Highlander. Toyota is a proud partner of CSU Athletics and the official vehicle of the NVR. Toyota, let's go places. I also want to talk to you about the homies at Branded Bills. If you are looking for a way to make your brand stand apart, look no further than Branded Bills. Maybe you have a softball team that needs their own gear. Maybe you've got a company that you want to rep. Whatever you need, they've got snapbacks, truckers, fitteds, beanies, or tees. Branded Bills has you covered with performance and style. Branded Bills has the best custom headwear. We use them throughout the All City network. We've got a couple of awesome Branded Bills DNVR hats available on the site now. And of course, they have a partnership with Colorado State as part of their on-campus collection. I've got a couple here on set, wear them all the time. I've been seeing more and more people rocking Branded Bills around the CSU campus, which you love. Head to brandedbills.com. Use that code BBDNVR for 15% off of your first order. All right, let's talk football. Let's talk takeaways from day one. I want to reiterate, it's day one. They're not in full pads. There's 70 new players. We have a lot, so much, basically all of the information is still to be learned. We can kind of talk about what the vibes were in this opening practice, though. We can talk about some of the guys that passed the eye test athletically, who will be keeping our eyes on moving forward, all of that. I want to start here. This is Jim Mora's opening statement because I feel like this kind of sets the scene for most of what we're going to talk about, which is that Mora is not coming in with any excuses. There were not a lot of cliches day one. Pretty frequently, first day of spring, it's just a lot of the coach being, oh, it's so great to get out here and be with the guys and all that. Everything was great. We've got a long room to grow. Mora, pretty honest, he didn't love the execution. He talked about how he's intrigued by the buy-in overall from the guys. Feels like they have the right mindset and he's excited to work with them. But this wasn't a day where he loved the execution, and he certainly was not afraid to sugarcoat it throughout the practice or while speaking with the media. But here was Jim Mora's opening statement following the first practice.
First of all, beautiful weather. Second of all, thanks for being out here. We appreciate any coverage we get. Hopefully you got something out of it. Off to a start. Pretty average start, probably what I expected though. It's interesting when we've been doing some work in the stadium, and all you have to do is kind of change the setting a little bit and you throw people for a loop. And we always want to be trying to put pressure on these guys, create uncertainty, because that's what a football game is about. So pressure, uncertainty, a little bit of chaos, changing environments, changing the schedule on them quickly, things like that, just to help them adapt and react the right way. But I'll tell you, the thing that I appreciate about these young men is their attitude and their effort has been really, really good. They're still learning what it's going to take. They're still learning the intensity that they're going to have to play with, the toughness, both mental and physical, that they're going to have to play with, the detail that they're going to have to demonstrate. But there's a real willingness. And when you've got a willingness and you've got players that are going to embrace what you're asking them to do, and we're going to ask them to do really, really hard things every single day, and it's going to get harder every single day. But when they're willing to embrace that, I think you've always got a chance. So, probably about like I thought it was going to be today. So, but we'll get better as we go.
I appreciate the honesty, frankly. You didn't get the obligatory, it was a great day because it's always a great day. It was a start. That was that was pretty. It allowed us to know exactly where he was coming from, and you're not going to go scorched earth day one, right? Like you're not going to come and rant and be like, oh my God, like we've got so far to go. Cause you got to understand the PR balance, but you're also not going to, try and sell us on something that isn't the case. And I appreciate that. Cause I don't think there are a lot of coaches who do that. I think they just kind of give the obligatory PR response, say the same things, and then they repeat them for the entirety of the season. That felt like a coach who was giving an honest assessment of what he saw. And he likes these guys. He thinks, there've been encouraging showings up to this point. He likes the attitude and mentality of the group, but they didn't go out and execute great. And practice, it was intense. That was definitely one of the things that stood out was the tempo and the pace from drill to drill, even from rep to rep. It is significantly more intense than what we have witnessed in recent years, certainly in the spring, but even like compared to fall camp and stuff. Like they are going to practice and push the pace a lot more. And to me, it kind of seems like they're trying to weed out, I don't want to say the weak, but just weed out the undependable early in the process. That was the thing he talked about a lot. They want guys to be in shape and be ready. And a lot of that comes down to, the work they're putting in behind the scenes, but also like, are you doing the right things from a recovery process? And if you're not doing those things, then how are we going to be able to depend on you in a 12-game season when you're playing full contact? Like it's kind of a great way to test who's really willing to, one, work their butt off, but also like prepare behind the scenes and do the right things to set themselves up for success. You can tell Mora's very hands-on in every element. He's out there working various drills, he's putting the pad on and trying to hit the ball out of the hands of the running backs. He's talking to the equipment people. He's talking to everyone. He's old school for sure. Language a little bit salty at times on the football field, but that's kind of to be expected. That's, I'm not easily offended with that type of stuff, and it certainly didn't feel problematic or anything like that. I'm not trying to give the wrong impression. It was just an old school, intense football practice, and I like that Mora is trying to set this standard far higher and not letting things like the transfer portal or the fact that it's the first year be an excuse. This is Jim Mora answering a question about, just essentially what was it like to be out there on the field for the first time after, months of talking about it and winter workouts and all that. Here's Jim Mora talking about how practice went.
It's fun. It's frustrating at times because you're always looking for perfection, even though it's the first day. But it's fun because this is what we enjoy doing, and they love it too. It's hard for them, but they love to play football, and so a good vibe. Not the energy that we wanted, not the execution we wanted, not the finish we wanted, not the intensity we wanted, not the focus we wanted, certainly not the detail we wanted, but the willingness is there. So it's fun to coach football, especially on a day like this.
So is that the kind of standard that you want to set out here today, straight out the gate?
Today was not even close to our standard. Today was as far away from our standard as you'll ever see us, I hope. So, but that being said, it'll get better.
Again, I just really appreciate the honesty. This was about as far away from our standard as I hope we'll ever be, but we're optimistic that it'll get better. Again, you're not going to go out and be like, the sky is falling. I have no idea what I got myself into. And I'm not a football coach, but I didn't get that impression like everything was a disaster. I just don't think it functioned quite as smoothly as he would have hoped for. I think there was some frustration at times with just like how things were operating, and that's going to happen at this stage of the process. It was really nice though to not hear him come and just be like, well, what are we supposed to do? This is the challenge of college football today. I've got so many new faces, we'll do what we can, but 70 new guys, what do you expect from us? Instead, it was pretty blunt of, year one's not an excuse. We've heard him go on the record multiple times now and talk about how the expectation, the goal that they're striving for in year one is to compete for a Pac-12 championship. And I like that they're backing that up with the day-to-day comment, because there's a lot of coaches, Adazio in particular, his last year, I just remember all throughout fall camp, they're talking about how they should be a championship team and this and that. lose a couple games in September, and by the time September rolls around, the narrative's completely shifted to like, we're in a transition year. What do you expect from us? If you are going to be a championship type program, you have to set that standard with the way that you operate in practice. And I know that McElwain did a phenomenal job of that when he came in and flipped things. And I get kind of a similar vibe just in terms of the perfectionist mindset being involved in every aspect of the program. I get those types of vibes with Mora, and it makes sense. Old school football coaches who have coached at a high level at a lot of different places, they've been around the block and they know what it takes to, frankly, not be a 2-10 program, which is another thing we heard, when Mora was talking. So I thought it was, despite not hearing that things went great, I kind of like that we heard that things weren't great because it was honest. And I think that's how you actually establish accountability. And that's how you can kind of push forward and stop underperforming like CSU has so consistently throughout the majority of the last 20 years. So here is Jim Mora rejecting the notion of year one being an excuse for any type of shortcomings.
Year one, we reject that notion of year one. Year one doesn't mean anything. I mean, every year counts, every year matters, every game counts. So we don't ever look at it like that. Hey, it's year one, we're growing. Bull crap, we're going. Okay, we expect to win. What we need to come out of spring with is an identification of who our playmakers are, who we can count on, who we can trust, who's dependable to us as a staff, who's dependable to their teammate, who has some mental toughness to do it the way we want it done, which is different than most people do it, who has competitive endurance, who can go longer and harder in competitive situations, who can handle the chaotic situations that happen in that stadium right there, the good and the bad. Guys that have endurance. We have way too many guys standing on the sidelines watching practice. That's not going to work with this team. You got to be out here practicing if you expect to play. So we got to get guys healthy, and they got to get out here and they got to practice. So if we can't count on a guy to stay healthy, then we're probably going to scratch him. If you can't trust a guy, then you're not going to play him. They'll be out of the plan. So we have to find out in these next 5 weeks who we can count on in every single way. Who's going to come out here and apply the things they learned in the classroom to the playing field. And then on Sundays or Saturdays when we have scrimmages, who can execute at a high level in a chaotic environment. So, and then last but not least, you want to stay healthy, but we're going to push. We're going to hit. We're going to be physical. It's going to be hard. And what I love is we got a bunch of guys that just embrace that concept.
I didn't play this clip, but in response to one of my questions, Jim Mora, when I basically asked, are there any limitations? You've been a coach for a long time. This process has obviously changed with roster building, with roster turnover. Has the amount of turnover that you experience year to year changed how you can operate in the spring? I don't think he loved that question, to be honest with you, but he did give a great quote, which was, people who can put limits on it, that's waving the white flag. So he doesn't care that there's 70 new players. He doesn't care that it's year one. Mora has a standard for what it takes to compete, and he's going to go for it, which there are no guarantees. Like, it's day one of spring. I have no idea how good this team is actually going to be come September, but there are some exciting guys that they brought in that passed the test from an athletic perspective. Again, like, it's not full pads, so that automatically limits a lot of what you can take away from guys in the trenches, linebackers and running backs. Like, they looked good in the cone drills and stuff like that. I will say the backs intrigued me a little bit, catching the ball out of the backfield. Darrell Robinson was unfortunately one of the guys who was not practicing, so we didn't get a chance to look at him. But Mel Brown, he had an awesome catch out of the backfield, looked really fluid in the open field, sure hands. Malachi Greaves was intriguing out there. Coleman actually is not somebody I kind of expected to be following, but he looked intriguing to me. I'm curious how they'll use him. Kind of looks more of like an H-back, fullback type player to me, but it wouldn't surprise me if we see a little bit of him, especially given the versatility that you can have this year offensively with the scheme. Certainly going to see, I would imagine, a lot more play action and a lot more, just getting the quarterback out of the pocket and taking advantage of the athleticism. Because with both Haney and Farrar, and it's day one, but they looked really intriguing throwing the football. Both those guys can move. Farrar a little bit bigger. Haney is not a big guy. I will say that. He's dynamic. The explosion is real. Like even just seeing him take off a couple of times and run on some of these practice settings. He's got a great arm. The mechanics are awesome. The zip is there. It's really compact. Frankly, it's nice to see somebody who I don't think you're going to have to worry about fundamentals like we have in recent years. But I'm cautiously optimistic about a lot of these different position groups. We'll talk about it here in just a second. Let me shout out a couple of our partners. We'll play an interview with Philip Ocon, and then we'll talk hoops in a little bit as well. Stop in and check out the Kona Grill at the Cherry Creek location or any of the other 22 across the United States. The $6 Kona Burger Bar is available all day, every day at the bar. It's a better deal than fast food for a higher quality experience. The 369 happy hour is available from 2 to 6 p.m. Great bites like chicken satay, ribeye meatballs, crafted margaritas, and amazing sushi rolls. The Taste of Kona tasting menu is available. It's a $39 3-course menu that includes app, dinner, and dessert. Also, a glass of wine or bubbles. That's a great deal, and it's available 3 p.m. to close every day of the week. Great way to take your significant other out, or maybe you've got a friend visiting from out of town. Go get a 3-course meal, get a bottle of wine. What a night. All City online ordering code for KonaGrill.com is AllCity26. If you use that, you are going to get a deal at KonaGrill.com. Sorry, my screen froze on me for a second. You can get buy one, get one steak burger with the code AllCity26. It's good for delivery, takeout, curbside pickup, and more. Check that out. Shout out to our friends at the Kona Grill. I also want to talk to you guys about Shady Rays. That moment you realize you left your favorite sunglasses in a hotel. You're already on the plane. Maybe you left it back in security at the airport. Maybe you left it at the ball field. I can't even. The amount of sunglasses that my family lost at baseball complexes over the years, it's astronomical. And I love Shady Rays because they take that out of the equation. I am not the brightest guy sometimes. I'm going to lose stuff. They've got my back. I know that if I leave it at the airport, if I leave it at the ball field, wherever, if I accidentally break them while I'm wrestling with my dog, every single pair is backed by lost and broken replacements. These sunglasses are changing the game. They're made for real life. They're seriously good looking, polarized, durable, and not stupidly expensive. I wear my Shady Rays all the time. Wear them in the pool, wear them on the go. I'll certainly have them on in Vegas, where it looks like the weather is going to be awesome this week. Looking forward to that. We've teamed up with Shady Rays to bring you an exclusive offer. Head to shadyrays.com. Use that code DNVR for 35% off polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself. The shades with 100,000 people. All right. Like I said, I don't want to get too carried away as far as individual assessments go, but watching the quarterbacks quite a bit. How are they throwing the ball? And the zip is there with both Farrar and Haney. And I'll be honest, Farrar popped in person more than I would have thought just based on his bowl performance. And I've heard good things about him behind the scene, but assuring given that Haney ankle injury. I don't want to speak for Mora, but based on just how the reps were handed, very clearly Haney and Farrar are the top two guys in that rotation, as you would expect. We got to see some of the young guys too, though. I mean, Kelly and Emmanuel, those are big dudes, throw the ball well. Emmanuel had like a 40-yard dot in one drill. That definitely caught my eye. Receivers go. Troy Foster, the true freshman, was really flying around out there. He's exciting. He's somebody we talked about a lot with the Norvell firing, still coming over, one of the, I thought, more underrated receivers coming out of California. He's somebody, I feel like RJ Vick really passed the eye test athletically. Mosley out there, Maher looks solid. I'm optimistic about the receivers. I don't know if it's going to be a dominant group, but I think they've got some guys that can make some plays. The tight end room, though, is exciting. Guys, Sperlin and Vereen definitely intrigue me. Nader Churchy, though, the UConn transfer, was someone who I was impressed with what I was seeing. He's a big guy with a lot of length, but he runs well, moves better than I would have expected Really, the whole room, though, looked pretty good. Dominic Toy was out there making plays. Brock Camp looked good, one of the returners. I got asked about him, I feel like a month ago, and I was maybe a little too dismissive. I'll be honest, he looks good out there. He's somebody who had legit D1 basketball offers coming out of high school, so you knew he's a good athlete. He's a big dude. They've got a ton of size, and it really wouldn't shock me if you see a lot of 2, even 3 tight end sets this year, just with the depth that they have in that room. I'm looking forward to watching the running backs more and defense, especially as we get more into contact. I will say the corners and a lot of the indie drills I saw against the receivers, they were not having a ton of success, so maybe something to keep an eye on, but please take that with a massive grain of salt. I don't want to get too carried away from day one, and I think it's very easy to, again, with the O-line like not being in full pads, there's not a ton you can take from that other than they do have a lot of size. They're pretty agile for the size that they have. It looks like Torian Johnson will be the front runner to be that starting left tackle, unsurprisingly. Right tackle is going to be the kid that came over from TCU, I imagine, based on, one, just NIL, but two, how things are going to play out here. I guess we'll see, though, because Stewart could potentially factor into that. They had him at right guard, but Tua, the Oregon State transfer, wasn't practicing. Could see him be in that mix as well. Johnson was at left tackle. Vivier was at left guard. Ocon was at center. Stewart was at right guard. Harris was at right tackle, but it's day one. We'll have to see if that group continues to seemingly be running with the ones. And we don't even have verified that the guys we saw, I mean, you can make assumptions based on the fact that Haney's with those guys, the transfer additions that you bring over at receiver, Mosley, Vick, like it all the front runners for who you would expect to be at least in the 2 deep. Those were the linemen that were running with them, but we saw a lot of rotation. So we'll keep an eye on some of those younger guys as well. There's a lot of guys that came back, like Holthouse and some of those guys. I'm curious to see how they factor into the mix. But there's a lot of size in that O-line room. And Philip Ocon, who's a very articulate individual, somebody who impressed me a lot last year, seems pretty stoked about the process. So here is about a 4-minute interview of Philip Ocon answering some questions from the local media just about why he decided to stick around and play for Mora, why he has so much respect for the way that Mora operates and like how he commands himself, how they're gelling, as an O-line and all that stuff. Here's Philip Ocon after yesterday's practice.
Great. OTAs and winter is one thing. We worked really, really hard to build a good base, and now that we're on the field in gear, we're really seeing those values come to light. The coaching staff's done a great job really instilling those values into us. Like every once a week, we've been really working on one specific value for the week. So coming out onto the field, I think it really shone through today.
Did you kind of see a different standard being set here at CSU?
Yeah, absolutely. Coach Mora has done a great job with the offense. Coach Tracy has done a great job. They really want us to lean into the hard work here and don't want us to shy away from it. And that's it's a little different from the years past, but I'm really, really excited. There's, as I like to say, there's no light at the end of the tunnel. So we're going to sit in this dark place and we're going to work our tails off until it's time to go.
How would you describe kind of the compete intensity level of practice today?
It was good. It was real good. Definitely could be better. There's always room for improvement. There's a lot of things we got to work on, both sides of the ball. But for our first day, I think we came out here and competed real well.
You kind of mentioned the kind of hard work, Coach Moore is talking about. Like it's going to be demanding, and he's going to put you through a lot. Just, I guess what do you expect that you guys will go through and learn through this spring?
Whatever it takes. You know what I mean? I have nothing but trust for that man. I got nothing but trust for my O-line coach, my offensive coordinator, and whatever they're going to put us through, however hard it's going to be, I know it's just what's going to be right for the season.
There's a few of you that are back, but a lot of new faces in that O-line room, especially. Just how has that gone with the guys, starting to gel?
It's been great. Everyone's gelled really, really well. The guys have been awesome. Everyone from different backgrounds has done a great job of really introducing themselves, really coming through and being a personable person. Not a single guy in that room I think about as a guy who doesn't work hard. Everyone works their tail off and everyone is ready to go. So everyone's been great.
What kind of excites you about this offense? Obviously going to look a little bit different schematically, maybe a little bit more mobile quarterback stuff. Just what excites you about it?
Haas is definitely an exciting piece to the offense. He's gonna do real well. We got a real explosive receiver room in Jackson Harper and Tommy Maher, and then the run game. Won't talk too much about it, but I'm really excited to run off the ball, get running, and hopefully knock the crap out of some people.
What was it about Jim Mora that made you want to stick around?
You know, he's a football coach through and through. He knows his stuff, and he's not going to lie to you. He's going to shoot you straight, tell you how it is, and he's going to make you work hard. And I love that kind of stuff. So
his resume, obviously, coached in the NFL, coached a lot of different college places. I mean, I guess does that automatically get some respect and like, okay, he's been where we want to go.
Yeah,
like,
obviously his resume. I have nothing but respect for the man, first and foremost. But even if you took all that out of perspective, the way that man carries himself, the way he walks around, the way he sets an example for the team, you respect him regardless.
Is it good to feel that pressure based off of the way that he runs things? Pressure on like you have to compete or you're not going to be here.
Yes, ma'am. I absolutely love it. It's a new era with NIL and all that kind of good stuff. So he really puts the pressure on us to perform, and you need to. Colorado State wants winners, and you got to perform to play here. So I do appreciate that extra pressure him and all the coaches are putting on us. I think it's gonna do great things for us in the long run.
How would you compare day one of spring today to maybe day one of spring the last couple of years?
Man, it's hard to compare. It's really hard to compare. We really work hard here. This new staff works the crap out of us, and I think it's great. But in the past, it's very difficult to compare. Really different structure with practices, but I think we're doing really great things here.
It seems like a lot more tempo.
Yeah, they like to get going, get on the ball quick, and get moving. And, got to be in shape for that. So I love it. You know how it is.
Good stuff from Philip Ocon. Appreciate him giving us a few minutes. I know there was some wind in the background there, so my apologies. Of course, didn't have any for the entire practice, and right as soon as we start doing interviews with Mora and the players, wind kicks up a little bit. I'll work on that for the future, see if I can get maybe a better mic or something like that can limit some of that background noise. But it was great to get the perspective and kind of hear from somebody who's been involved, who's expected to play a significant role for you. Obviously, Philip should be the front runner to be that starting center this year. I was really impressed in how he was kind of able to handle last year. I mean, breaking your hand and snapping the football with your opposite hand is absolutely insane, and really not skipping a beat in doing so. So big things potentially in store for him. We'll hear from more players throughout spring. Obviously, I'll be in Vegas this week, a lot of hoops coverage, but we will have a ton of football talk here over the next 5-6 weeks going into the summer. If you're watching live on YouTube and wouldn't mind hitting a thumbs up, like Sky says in the Toyota chat, smash that like, dorks. I certainly would appreciate you. Let's get into kind of a disappointing result, obviously, with CSU men's basketball falling to Boise State over the weekend. The 8-game win streak comes to an end. Really, it was back and forth early, but you could kind of feel how this one was headed early. A little too complacent to settle for jumpers at times, although CSU finished with 38 points in the paint, so I can't nitpick the offense too much in that sense. I mean, 38 points in the paint, 50% from the floor. That's good stuff. 18 assists on 26 made field goals. All of those are actually pretty encouraging, as well as only turning the ball over 9 times. The problem was CSU just got worked on the glass. That was the difference in this game. Yes, the Rams missed way too many open jump shots, and that hurt their cause, no doubt. But the reason you lost this game is because you were minus 16 on the glass and because you gave up 19 second chance points. You're really shrinking your margins for success when you do that. And all year long, we've talked about points off of turnovers and second chance points kind of being the bugaboos for this CSU squad. Even in some of the games where they've played well and beaten good teams, one or both of those issues have come up fairly consistently. They don't really have a dominant rebounder, especially at the 5. Booth's probably the best rebounder on the team, but a lot of time he's out guarding wings depending on the matchup. They're really dependent on this group being able to successfully rebound as a unit. And in some games they've had success. And they for a team that doesn't have like a true dominant big, a Nico Carvacho type rebounder, they've been pretty good with the guards being able to make up for some of that. But it's one of those things where you play a team like Boise, it just it compounds, and they're one of the better rebounding teams in the conference, so it's not surprising that this happened. But I just felt like the Rams didn't really have the right type of fight, and Boise kind of dictated this game physically. And it's been a while, I feel like, since you could say that about CSU and some of these big conference games. So disappointing. It sucks to see the win streak come to an end. It would have been a fun storyline to see if they could potentially extend it to double digits, a lot like what we saw last year. If there was a slim chance of potentially getting an at-large bid by closing the regular season with that win streak and then winning 3 straight games in Vegas, that went out the window. Now you are either going to win 4 games in 4 days and make the NCAA tournament that way, or you're going to be playing in the NIT or the Crown or one of those other alternative postseason opportunities. I do think, given an invitation, we would see CSU participate in one of those events, but we'll see. I just think there's value, especially for some of these guys who you would presume will be back next year. Jace Butler, Kerry Booth, Rex Steiner, some of those types of guys. But I had kind of a bad feeling on Saturday morning. Just felt like classic letdown territory. Said it at the beginning of the pod, but you see it all the time, not just in college sports, but really in all sports. Like, you win a big game, everybody's bought in, they're feeling you. You're probably feeling yourself a little bit, and you don't bring the right type of mentality and you get punched in the face a little bit. And I'm hoping to see it be a wake-up call or just a good reminder for this group that if you don't bring the intensity at this stage of the season, especially against a team in the top half of the conference, and you've really got to respect like 9 teams in this league in terms of their viability to win the Mountain West tournament. It feels about as wide open as it's ever been. You can't really overlook anyone, even some of the bad teams like Deshaun Gorey with Fresno State. That's not a great draw for CSU. He's a bucket. Colby Garland on San Jose State. That team's terrible. They've got no depth, but they play hard for Tim Miles. And Garland's the second leading scorer in the conference. So, like, he's a guy that could just potentially go off for 35 or something, and you lose a crazy game like that in a 40-minute basketball game. A lot of weird stuff can happen. But if you're not locked in defensively, if you don't bring the right physical approach, you're not going to win at this time of year. And whether it be the rebounding, the second chance points, the fact that you only had 2 free throw attempts at halftime, you got to the line once, it was all indicative of a team who just didn't bring the fight in the way that they needed to beat a really good Boise State team. And again, I don't want to minimize that element. I would say that Boise is playing as well as anybody in the league right now. Utah State, New Mexico, they're certainly really dangerous, and they played an awesome game on Saturday. Still insane that game, as well as CSU Boise, two games with really big implications for the league. Neither of them are on TV, just silly. But Boise is solid. They've won 5 straight. They lost a couple of heartbreakers, but they're deep. Like Buchanan and Meadow, I guess Meadow finished with 11 and 7 boards, so that's not a bad game from him. But Buchanan had 4, went down early in the game, so that might have limited him a little bit. But I mean, Andrews had 19, Fielder had 23. Fielder 23 points, 10 of 15 from the floor, and that's having gone 1 of 5 from 3-point. So really did whatever he wanted to in the paint. Just bullied CSU in the post. Had 6 rebounds as well. A dominant showing from him, and CSU just didn't get it done. Maybe had they hit 15 threes, they would have had a shot. I still think with the disparity on the glass, they probably lose a tight game. But when your starters struggle to score like CSU did in this one, it's not going to be a matchup or a recipe for success. Starters 5-18 from 3-point, and at least 2, potentially even 3 of those came over the last 90 seconds when the game was out of reach. So, I mean, the Rams could not buy a bucket from deep throughout this one. Boise wasn't awesome from 3-point, but they hit enough. It felt like every time CSU would try and work their way back into it. And there was a patient approach in that second half that I think was the right idea. Like, keep working the paint. You finish with 38 down there. You're having some success. But the problem was they couldn't string together enough stops on the other end to really cut into the deficit. That combined with Boise seemingly hitting a timely three every, 5, 6 minutes, like a big corner three or something like that. CSU starts to get a little momentum. Boom, they hit a three. The Rams would follow it up with like a missed free throw. And there just weren't enough plays stacked together to truly realistically fight back into this game. They hung around, they scored some points late that made the game look closer than it was. But I mean, really definitively, it was a 10 to 15 point loss. You just got outplayed by a team who looked better than you in this one. So we'll see. Maybe you get round 3 in Vegas. Just in principle, it's really hard to beat the same team 3 times. I've talked about that so many times over the years. If you can make it to the semis, you've got a chance of playing Boise or New Mexico, likely. But the Rams obviously get the 7-10 draw where they'll play Fresno State. Not stoked about it. I mean, Fresno plays everyone hard. They had double-digit leads over CSU in both games at various points this year. The Rams fought back into both those games. They're certainly the better team. They've got more talent on paper. They're deeper. But Fresno's going to defend hard. You got to get them into foul trouble. You're definitely going to have to shoot the ball better than you did in this game. But this is a game you should win. Like, if you really want to have any chance whatsoever to make a run, you can't be, scared of teams like Fresno. And what I like is, while you're not going to be stoked about the chance to play San Diego State in Vegas if you win, historically, that's a tough spot. But kind of feels like San Diego State, of those top 3, they're the most susceptible to a letdown showing. Feels like they're maybe trending the wrong direction. Sounds like there's going to be kind of a mass exodus. I'm not sure the vibes with that program are incredible right now. And I fully well may look like an idiot in the end. Like, we might be revisiting this clip in a week after San Diego State rips off 3 straight wins and looks like the brand we're all used to seeing. That's possible. And it's happened before. There have been years where San Diego State was very meh for much of the season. And then they get out to Vegas and then they find it. They find their flow for 3 days. The fans come out. San Diego State, New Mexico, those are 2 tough teams to match up with in the setting because their fans travel so well. But I like the fact that you've got a chance to potentially avoid, having to play one of who I think are the best 2 teams in the early process. You don't have to get Utah State or New Mexico. You would likely have to beat New Mexico because I think they'll beat Boise, but we'll see in the semis. I think New Mexico, in terms of the matchup on the court, I actually think it's a better draw for the Rams. But I think you'd rather play Boise State simply because you don't want to have to deal with those Lobo fans on Friday night. They travel so well. That becomes a de facto road game at that point. It's going to be tough either way. Like, the odds of winning 4-4, especially when you have to win late night Friday night, and then if you make the championship, it's like at noon the next day. It's the stupidest format. It's been that case for the entire time I've covered the league, so it's nothing new. It's not like they're getting screwed or anything like that. This is what it's always been. It's just such a stupid format, and I hate that the league hasn't fought more to do right by what's better for their players. I know they want that CBS window, and that's really valuable to them, but like, if it meant getting the game at 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. instead, put it on CBS Sports Network. I don't think that's the end of the world. They would never do that. I get it. They're not going to sacrifice that exposure, but it puts whoever gets the late night game in a very, very disadvantageous position. And every year it has some type of impact and who ends up winning this whole thing. So the Rams are in a tough spot. We'll talk about it more tomorrow as well when I kind of preview the entire tournament, hoping to get somebody like Tyler King, or maybe we'll get Steve Ivey on and we'll go kind of round for round how we expect it to play out, like what needs to happen from CSU to have success, all of that fun stuff. Before we get out of here, I did want to give just a couple of thoughts on the Mountain West postseason awards. If you got any questions, comments, etc., fire them my way in the Toyota chat and I can get to them before we get out of here. This will likely snap a 7-year streak of CSU having a first-team all-conference player. I think it was the longest streak in the league. that went back to Nico Carvaggio, and then you had Roddy and Isaiah and Neek and all those guys over the years. 7 straight seasons of CSU producing a first-team all-conference basketball player in a talented league. I mean, it's not like the league has been lacking for talent in recent years. Been hurt by the portal a little bit more the last 2-3 years. You think back to, like imagine if Donovan Dent and some of these guys were still in the picture here. But it was a tough year. I'm not gonna lie. It does feel like there's not the same type of star power that you had this past season. That's what Kevin Lytle and I were talking about. Like Neek and Dent were so far ahead of everybody last year. Like it was those two and everybody else. This year, it's not really like that. I will say Dre Gibbs-Lawhorn is putting up insane numbers. Statistically speaking, it's the best offensive season since Jimmer Fredette with BYU, which is saying something. And to me, I think he has to be the player of the year because he is so far ahead of everybody else statistically. I struggle with it because I am a big proponent of team success should factor into the conversation for MVP, player of the year type stuff. If you really are the best player, one, you might not necessarily have to have the same type of raw stats because you might be elevating other people, one, by the attention that you're commanding, and two, by the way you're distributing the ball, all of that. There is an argument that it's easier to be good stats player on a bad team than it is to be a great player who successfully and healthily operates throughout an ecosystem and elevates every player on the floor, a la Nikola Jokic, although, like nobody in the Mountain West is going to elevate their teammates like that. But I mean, just seeing the numbers, it's hard for me to argue against Gibbs-Lawhorn, especially with the scoring performances he had down the stretch here. He is basically the only reason UNLV is relevant. They've got a couple of nice pieces, but he's averaging just shy of 24 points a game. He's second in field goal percentage, so it's not like he hasn't been efficient. That was one thing I wanted to check on. Like, yes, I know the scoring numbers are great, but how efficient is he? He's second in field goal percentage. He's first in three-point percentage. He's hit more threes than anybody in the league. He plays 36 minutes a night, which is top 3. Night in, night out, he has been the most impressive player in the Mountain West. And despite UNLV getting the 8th seed in the conference tournament and me kind of hating everything about that, I think it should be Dre Gibbs-Lawhorn for Mountain West Player of the Year. Falslev will probably win. Historically, team success has factored a lot into this, and I do think that with Utah State winning an outright Mountain West title, Mason Falslev will win, and he would be deserving. Like, he's had a great year, and I think he factors into that conversation of a guy who would put up better stats if he was on a worse team, but doesn't have to because they are a really good team. Probably shouldn't be punished for that. He's a great two-way player. I also think you could make an argument that Falslev is deserving of Defensive Player of the Year. I'd probably go Elijah Price, the forward from Nevada, but I think there's a couple guys you could talk about. Hedenley, the guard from GCU, has had another solid year as well, former UNLV player. The freshman of the year I would give to Jake Hall of New Mexico. I have him on the first team all-conference as well. And then coach of the year, I think Olin has a really strong argument with New Mexico. I think Ali Faroukmanesh should have a strong argument with this team winning 20-plus games. I think Calhoun should get it. I know that Utah State was expected to be one of the better teams in the league. They had better continuity than basically anybody else other than San Diego State. I think at times we dismiss teams that have a track record of success, and that's not necessarily fair. They won the conference title outright. Like, to me, Calhoun has a really strong case. If I was voting for the all-conference team, which I don't have an official vote, by the way, Dre Gibbs-Lawhorn, Mason Falslev, Jaden Henley, the the GCU guard formerly of UNLV, and then I have Jake Hall and Tomislav Buljan of New Mexico, both rounding out my first team. Some tough omissions, though, like Colby Garland put up awesome numbers this year statistically. Fielder of Boise State is somebody that I feel like should have a strong case just based on his two-way impact. But Buljan's consistency offensively as well as his rebounding numbers, it kind of gave him the edge for that 5th spot. But I think the top 4, Gibbs-Lawhorn, Falslev, Henley, and Jake Hall, are kind of indisputable. Like, Elijah Price is another guy I would put in the conversation. There's a couple of Nevada players I guess you could make a case for. But that's what I would roll with Again, I would vote for Dre Gibbs-Lawhorn as the player of the year. Just feel like he was the most impressive player I saw night in, night out in the Mountain West this season. Should be really fun in Vegas this week. I'm looking forward to it. Keep an eye on the site. We'll have more written content coming your way, all kinds of stuff on social as well. Shout out to our awesome producer, Christian, who's been killing it with us. Shout out to all of you making this possible. I wouldn't be able to cover this program that I've loved for so long and has been so influential in my life if it wasn't for people like you. The fact that it's been a decade already is really insane. A lot of that coming here at DNVR. But thank you for listening to the DNVR Rams podcast presented by Branded Bills. Head to brandedbills.com. Use that code BBDNVR for 15% off of your first order. Much love, y'all. Always proud to be. Peace.
We all silly like the mayor.